Hello, everyone. This is David Bryant, Mr. Support Friend. I'm a support coach, entrepreneur, and I used to be a professional songwriter in the 80s. And today is September 21st, 2022. And I thought this would be a great day to pay tribute to one of my musical heroes, Hall of Fame songwriter, producer, and legendary rhythm guitar player, Al McKay. Now, Al McKay had a huge positive influence in my life. I'm going to share some of that story, give you some background information about his life, and just touch on some of the things that I think make Al special. He's one of the unique musical talents that's ever been on this earth. And I think you're going to enjoy some of the things that I'm going to share with you. So let's just go ahead on and get started, talk a little bit about Al's background. Al was born and raised in New Orleans, Louisiana. His first professional gig was as a guitarist for the Ike and Tina Turner Revue. A lot of people don't know that. He then went on to become a member of the Watts 103rd Street Rhythm Band and later became a member of the band Earth, Wind, and Fire from 1973 to 1981. That's where most people know Al from. Prior to joining Earth, Wind, and Fire, Al also performed with the Jackson Five, Smokey Robinson, Gladys Knight, and Sammy Davis Jr. Wow, talk about legends. So Al started off young in his teens, and every step of the way, he was at the legendary level. Now Al performs with his band, the Al McKay All-Stars, does songs from Earth, Wind, and Fire, his own songs, travels the world. He's still doing it now. I mean, it's incredible what he's been able to do for so many years, so many decades. All right, so everybody knows Earth, Wind, and Fire is my all-time favorite band. I mean, come on now. I grew up in the 70s in my room in middle school and in high school, overdosing on Stevie Wonder, Earth, Wind, and Fire, Michael Jackson, Prince. I mean, it was a great era. And Earth, Wind, and Fire, by far, to me, was the best band. R&B band. There were rock bands, obviously, but R&B, pop, crossover, dance, it was Earth, Wind, and Fire. Now, Kool and the Gang was cool. The Commodores were cool, and there were others. But Earth, Wind, and Fire had this combination of music, musicianship, and then the lyrical content was so positive. You're a shining star no matter who you are. When you feel down and out, sing a song. I could go on and on and on. So there was this combination of all this positive energy. And then also the musicianship was off the charts because Maurice White, who founded the band, he came from a jazz background. They were doing some really hip stuff until this group, these nine guys came together and it started to get super commercial, hits after hit after hit. It was incredible. So for those of you who don't know, from left to right, you've got Verdine White. There's Al McKay right next to him. And this is the front row. Philip Bailey, Maurice White, Andrew Woolfolk, and Ralph Johnson. And then in the back row, you've got Larry Dunn, Fred White, and Johnny Graham. Those nine right there, they made it to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. This is a band that was like no other band. And their live show was off the hook. They used to do magic disappearing stuff on songs like Getaway. I remember going to the Forum in Los Angeles and seeing the show. I was blown away. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The musicianship, just the whole way the show was put together, it was off the hook. So yeah, Earth, Wind, and Fire was my favorite band and is to this day of all time. All right, so every year on this day, September 21st, people all over the world celebrate the song September by Earth, Wind, and Fire, written by Maurice White, Al McKay, and Allie Willis. Now, those three people in combination did a great song that's lasted the test of time. Every year on this day, people go bananas over this song. That's why I wanted to do this tribute on this day, because, you know, it was the right day to do it, right? But I'm telling you, that song is so well put together. And, you know, Allie tells this story that's really fascinating. As somebody who was a professional songwriter, I really understand this. So let me share with you, this is from like Wikipedia, using a chord progression written by Earth, Wind, and Fire guitarist Al McKay, vocalist Maurice White, and songwriter Allie Willis wrote the song over 1 month. Willis was initially bothered by the gibberish Badia, and you know everybody sings the Badia to this day, the lyric that White used throughout the song, and they begged him to rewrite it. Here's what she said. I just said, what the F does Badia mean? And he essentially said, who the F cares? Okay. I learned one of my greatest lessons ever in songwriting from him, which was never to let the lyric get in the way of the groove. And that is so true. Music is the lead and dominant energy when people are listening to music, and lyrics complement that. Now, if the compliment is phenomenal with positive words or just stories that really move people, that's great. But especially when you're doing dance music, R&B, groove related music, you want the groove to dominate. So whatever you need to do to get there, to get a hit, you need to do it. And Maurice obviously felt the body over the top of the groove and the music that Al had laid down. So that's a great story to me that maybe a lot of people don't even know. All right, so now here's a quote from Al on how Al and Maurice used to write these hit songs that they wrote. He said, "My gift is finding the pocket of the song. Once I set the pocket, everybody plays to me. I came up with these grooves. This is how Maurice White and I wrote. All the songs we wrote came out of me sitting in the tuning room. Tuning room is the tuning room before you go on stage. I just started playing," he said. He'd hear it and start singing something. That's Maurice would hear what Al was playing. He'd come in the room and say, "What's that?" I'd say, "Nothing." He'd say, "Tape that." And we put the tape recorder on and we write 3 or 4 songs that way. These were some of the biggest hits that these guys wrote. So there's the process. It was happening before they would go on stage live. Al was tuning up and coming up with these riffs, and Maurice recognized, man, that is it. What's that? Tape it. You got to love that story. So Al and Maurice produced Earth, Wind, and Fire's dance hit, Boogie Wonderland, in addition to writing Sing a Song and also September and The Best of My Love. I should go back to that. Let me go back to that right there. Okay. These songs were hits, right? Best of My Love was #1. Earth, Wind, and Fire, Sing a Song, one of the most positive lyrics, and really the groove on that, the guitar is killing it in the beginning. These songs were hits. And Al and Maurice also produced Boogie Wonderland. This was in the middle of the disco era where the dance craze was going nuts. And the Emotions, who sang Best of My Love, they also appeared on Boogie Wonderland. Little history for those of you who might be a little younger listening to this. All right, so here's Al's contribution to R&B music in the 70s and 80s. It's absolutely amazing. This is just a few of the albums he contributed to as a songwriter, producer, and or rhythm guitar player. I mean, obviously all the Earth, Wind, and Fire stuff, Denise Williams, Patrice Rushen, Isaac Hayes, The Emotions, Ramsey Lewis, the 103rd Street Watts, 103rd Street Rhythm Band, and then also The Emotions in addition to Ren Woods. Now, there's so much more, and this was just what was off of his website. So I grabbed these off of his website. It's just amazing the contribution that he made. Now, I have to tell you about personally my all-time favorite Earth, Wind, and Fire album. It's All in All. All in All to me is a masterpiece. And Al actually had conversations with me about this album because I told him I couldn't believe what I was hearing on some of these songs. He told me how they worked on Serpentine Fire until they got it right. The first 2 or 3 versions of it wasn't it. That was the beauty back in the 70s when people were getting together physically and recording versus today it's more digital. Somebody can be on a laptop, they're taking samples, that's all cool. But back in the day, it was like a group of guys or gals or both getting in a room and coming up with that groove, coming up with what made sense. And sometimes it was a discovery process. It was a search, right? That's it. That's the reason why when you heard Maurice say, "That's it, play that, record that," right? It's like this magical moment. So it took them some time to be able to get these grooves that are on these records that last the test of time. And I remember him telling me specifically about Serpentine Fire. Obviously, Jupiter was a groove that was off the hook. Al, he co-wrote both Serpentine Fire, Jupiter, and I'll Write a Song for You, as well as Magic Mind. Now, for those of you musicians out there, this Magic Mind is something else, okay? The groove between him, Al, and Verdine White, okay, is off the charts. I mean, this is like something that you go, wait a minute, how can they be so locked in, listening to each other, filling the spots at the right moments? It's a feel. So that's why Al says when he finds the pocket and Verdine is right in the pocket with him, It's incredible. I mean, this doesn't happen these days. I'm telling you, these guys were pioneers. They laid the foundation. When you listen to Michael Jackson's records or a lot of the 80s records, the influence of Earth, Wind, and Fire, the influence of Al McKay on guitar players like, Paul Jackson Jr. or David Williams, who played on a lot of the records in the 80s, it's there. That's who those guys were listening to. That's who I was listening to. And that was really, what we were influenced by. And this is just an incredible story that happened to me. So I went to Hollywood High, and one of my really good friends was Mark Stevens. Mark happens to be the brother of Shaka Khan. Also, I went to high school with Kate McKay, who's Al McKay's sister. So I met Al McKay for the first time through Mark Stevens. When Al left Earth, Wind, and Fire in 1981, he started a brand new band. He was doing collaborations with young people, and it was great. And he invited Mark to audition. And Mark said, I need a ride, David. So I was, what, are you kidding me? I'm there. So I gave Mark a ride, and I met Al for the first time. I'll never forget it, up in Los Feliz at his house. He opens up the door. There's my musical hero. And he says, oh, wait a minute, David Bryant, that name sounds familiar. You go to Hollywood High with my sister? Yeah. She told me about you. You're the songwriter, right? Right. I want to hear your stuff. Like, that was it for me. This was my entry into becoming a professional songwriter. Now, I didn't know what was going to happen, but I was prepared, because I pulled out a cassette tape out of my pocket and I gave it to him, because my father, who was a big influence on me as well, he said, you need to be prepared for these moments. Whenever something might strike, be prepared. And I was. I'd been working on my stuff. So I basically gave Al a cassette. He listened to it, and he really liked what he heard. So he invited me to come back and co-write songs with him and another 20-year-old at the time, which was Tony Haynes. And so Tony did the lyrics. Myself and Al, we focused on the music, and we ended up writing songs for a lot of different artists. Now, the first artist that I actually wrote a song for that got placed was a song I wrote with Tony and Al. It was with the Spinners, called Send a Little Love. Love that song. Positive and Tume and Lucas produced it. They were big songwriters and producers in that generation. We also worked on Finest Henderson's album. A lot of great studio musicians who I admired, Jeff Porcaro and, Steve Lukather and Al, of course, and many others, Bill Champlin. A lot of people were in those sessions. Unbelievable. I absolutely had a great time doing that. Lovers, I co-wrote with Finest and Greg Doherty, Greg Doty, excuse me, Greg. And we had a great time. Tony also was involved with that as well. And then we also did a production on A Taste of Honey. You remember them, right? A Boogie Oogie Oogie. Well, Al produced their album that included some songs that we wrote: Sayonara, Never Go Wrong, and Diamond Reel. That was a great experience working with them. And then a cover happened after that by Michael Wyckoff of Diamond Reel. And I absolutely loved that song, and I loved the cover that they did, because he took it in another direction, different than what was recorded on the A Taste of Honey album. And man, it grooves. If you go to YouTube and you listen to that one, it's really awesome. Al's playing rhythm guitar on it that's off the hook. Check that one out if you get a chance. So those are some of the things that I did with Al. And I ended up going on after that, and I ended up becoming a really successful songwriter in the 80s. Now, the last thing I wanted to leave you with is this. The two best 70s R&B dance, bass, and guitar duos of all time, in my opinion, is Verdine White and Al McKay of Earth, Wind, and Fire, and Nile Rodgers and Bernard Edwards of Chic. These two sets, the bass player and the guitar player, were unlike any others in that era, and I think from this time on. They laid the foundation of what was going on in that era as far as R&B dance music is concerned. They each had different styles. It was very identifiable. You could really tell if you knew the music of the day. You could tell Verdine and Al in that pocket they had, and then you could tell Chic. You could tell Bernard and Nile. Now, the interesting thing for me is I started my career songwriting professionally with Al, and then later on in the 80s, Nile Rodgers ended up producing a song that I co-wrote with my good friend Lorelei McBroom and Dennis Herring called Dancing on the Jagged Edge for Sister Sledge. And then Bernard Edwards, after that, produced my biggest hit record that I ever had, which I co-wrote with Jody Watley and Franny Goldie, Don't You Want Me, for Jody Watley. So 3 of those guys on that page right there, I actually had musical connection with Verdine, I've admired from a distance. He's unbelievable. If Verdine wasn't in Earth, Wind and Fire, if he was just a standalone bass player like these session musicians, I mean, he'd be considered one of the greatest in that too, because Verdine is the groove master. And when you put Al and Verdine together, and Fred White or Maurice, whoever was playing the drums on the session, it's unbelievable. So I needed to do this tribute today because this is the day, September 21st, that everybody celebrates every year. The song September that Al co-wrote with Maurice and Allie. I also wrote a song with Allie Willis for Melissa Manchester. So I crossed paths with all these people at that time. I was blessed and grateful because I was an average songwriter, but I really interacted with some of the legends, some of the best of all time. And Al McKay was certainly one of those. So if you want more information about Al, visit his website, www.almckay.com. He's got all kinds of information there. He's touring all the time, still to this day. I don't know how these older guys do it. I mean, man, they have stamina and, they just love the live performance. They've been doing it in the biggest arenas in the world all their life. And so to them, it's second nature. But Al, I just want to thank you. If you're listening to this, I just want to thank you, man, for opening the door for me, for our collaborations, how positive it was, the influence you had on me when I was a teenager, the influence you had on me when I actually ended up writing songs with you. Man, I wouldn't have had my musical career probably the way it is or the way it was if you hadn't left Earth, Wind, and Fire. So I think about that all the time. I go, if Al was still Earth, Wind, and Fire, I probably wouldn't have been writing songs with anybody like him. So Al, thank you very much. It's interesting how, Jehovah God has a plan, and it was meant to be that we cross paths. And I hope you're doing great and continue to make that great music. You are one special musical individual. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening to my tribute and enjoy September today. It's September 21st. All right. Have a wonderful day.